Alright, so in the war, there were a lot of animals used. Most of the time people look past them because they're not the human lives that were lost. However, with horses and donkeys and mules alone, 8 million of them were killed during World War I. So to combat the amount of deaths happening, the American Humane Society in 1916, specifically on June 27th, created the American Red Star Relief Program, which was basically the Red Cross. However, it was for animals, so they would rush onto the battlefield with their vets, blacksmiths, and stable hands to settle down animals that were injured, take them off the battlefield, and transport them elsewhere for care. One of their biggest goals was actually to create a mobile fleet of ambulances to protect the animals and give them better care within the war. Over there you can see some of the uses for the animals, such as mascots. They were used mostly for boosting morale. For instance, in Australia they used koalas and kangaroos, which are very kind animals if you treat them correctly. But in East Africa they used a pony painted like a zebra to make people just a little bit happier during the war. And obviously there were the messengers like the pigeons, such as a specific pigeon named Cherami, who actually is credited with saving the Lost Battalion, which was a group of 554 soldiers who were trapped behind enemy lines without any supplies. They had tried to send out 2 pigeons previously, which were all shot down by German troops. But on the 3rd try, they sent out Cherami, and while she did end up coming back with a bullet through her chest, her eye was completely blinded and her leg was hanging off, she did manage to save over 100 of the men that were left there. So she was very instrumental in saving all of those men that she managed to save. And she also managed to safely retire and go to a boat to France with her little peg leg. Now that they amputated her leg and made a new one. So she was a very interesting pigeon, frankly. And then over here there are some of the very notable ones that we have pictures of, such as Sergeant Bill. Sergeant Bill was a goat. However, he was used in the trenches. He actually saved 3 men once because he headbutted them into the trench at the time of an explosion, which managed to save those 3 men. Now, Sergeant Bill did suffer from several injuries after the war, such as shell shock, which actually does surprisingly also affect goats, which I wasn't aware of before this. And then there's Tirpitz, obviously. He was a pig who they were going to use as food on the SMS Dresden, but when the Dresden sank, he managed to swim his way back to Glasgow, and they decided they liked him so much that they'd name him after Admiral Albert von Tirpitz. So he was a very cool pig. He was honored for his bravery for swimming all the way back there. And then there's Jackie the Baboon, who was used because his eyes and ears were much stronger than a person, so he could alert anyone to enemies coming nearby and would tug on their clothing to let them know that there's danger, which saved a lot of lives because it had that preemptive warning right before anything would happen. And that is obviously Sergeant Stubby. Needs no introduction. Most people would know him out of this lineup the most. He was actually honored with a Purple Heart after his service because of how much he did for the war. Winnie the Pooh is actually inspired by a real bear named Winnipeg. She was actually a she originally, but after she retired as a mascot, she moved to the London Zoo, where she was known for being very gentle and kind, and a boy named Christopher Robin took a very heavy liking to her and actually named his stuffed bear Winnie after her. So his parent wrote the series Winnie the Pooh after that experience with his son and the bear. So that was really interesting. Is there anything else you'd like to hear about at all?
What's your name?
My name's Claire Blazing.
Okay. Are you a reenactor or just independent, or?
I actually am a pretty new reenactor. Okay. I worked here as a volunteer when I was younger. I started about 8, but this is my first event that I'm actually working as a full interpreter, so I'm very excited about it.